You know, being here on DA Wrestling, you go through a lot, watch a lot of wrestling, And I was thinking to myself, hey, NXT. I don't like talking NXT, know, but hey, the question I have myself is like, who is the best people ever in NXT? Now, it's a long list of people, for God's sakes. It's a massive amount of lists. And it's hard to put it down into 10 people or top 10 or who's best is. So this is kind of a top 10 list, but it's a part one, right? Maybe it'll be a tournament issue. Probably not. But hey, it's a top 10 for now, right? There's no particular order. There's no really number one or number 10 here, right? But it is going to be 10 superstars who basically are the best in people at NXT that have come out of NXT, right? This is part one of DA Wrestling's top NXT people of all time. I'm Andrew, this is DA Wrestling. Welcome to the show. Okay. As I said, welcome to the show here, guys. Before I get to move any further, make sure you like, share, subscribe down below. Right? We appreciate all subscribers. We appreciate all the people who enjoy the content here. If you do like it, you find yourself enjoying it, you like this mug here, go click on down there, right? Follow us on Podbean, Spotify. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X as it is now, right? At DA Wrestling. Click the little subscribe there, right? Spotify, I said Podbean, that's where we all are for the audio versions, right? Anyway, let's get into this. So NXT has had a lot of people go through it. Guys from Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, Ricochet, right? You had a small stint of Kenny Omega. Small, very small, right? You had Finn Balor there. You've had Kevin Owens there. You've had some people come down to NXT, right? You've had Bobby Roode. You've had like a lot of people go through NXT. So I've decided to put a pile up there of not really a top 10, but it is a top 10, right? Of the top NXT guys. Part one. Because there's a lot to go through here. All right? This is a top 10 list currently. It's men and women combined. So it's not just like, a separate entity for both, right? I'm not going to just segregate one sex against the other sex. No. It's going to be all there. So whichever's on the list is just a random list, right? Of top 10. There's more to it. This is part one. Hope you enjoy it. Anyway, starting off with our list here. We're going to go with Bayley. Bayley is on this list here. Why you say Bayley? Well, it's real simple actually. Bayley was arguably the heart and soul of the female division in NXT quite a while ago, right? She has gone down there. She was part of the Four Horsewomen of wrestling. She spent the longest down in NXT, right? She is an NXT Women's Champion. Had battles against Nia Jax, right? Won the title against Sasha Banks, right? And a very famous match in Brooklyn, right? Arguably one of the best matches of all time out of NXT, right? Her main roster stuff has kind of like was kind of started off very cold, but as soon as she took away the whole hugger stuff, which worked in NXT, didn't really translate that well onto the main roster. When she turned heel, it became much better. She became arguably the MVP of the entire pandemic, right? But her NXT time is marked with a lot of times, a lot of building her up, and failing, then building up again, then failing, building up again, failing, eventually winning the whole thing. Like I said, NXT Brooklyn, right? She eventually lost the title to Asuka, right? Who went on for transfer. We'll get on to her Asuka at some point. But hey, she's the reason why she's at number 10 right now. Or if you want to say she's just there at 10. All right? Moving on. Next one on our list. Another heart and soul of the whole thing, Sami Zayn. Now, Sami Zayn was there, obviously, a little before Kevin Owens. He is most known for his feuds with Neville, Kevin Owens, huge one with Kevin Owens, right? Held NXT Championship for a little bit. Eventually losing it to his friend Kevin Owens in a very massive angle where he got hurt after he won the match, right? So what happens to be Kevin Owens' debut, right? Ends up being the heart of that team, heart and soul of that entire thing, eventually ends up losing, right, and leaving NXT, right, to the debut Shinsuke Nakamura in NXT Dallas, Takeover Dallas, and has had a very up and down main roster. You can argue that his past number of years, though, right, past let's say 2 to 3 years, have been probably the best he's ever done in NXT, right? Being a tag team champion with Kevin Owens, headlining it with Kevin Owens at WrestleMania, right? Having his matches with, the Bloodline, etc., right? Joining the Bloodline, being part of the Bloodline, right? All those things he's done very, very well for. So really, when you think about it, his whole stuff has probably been the best he's ever done, right? His entire time in NXT, right? Better than his time in NXT. But he has still always been known as Mr. NXT to a certain degree. Okay? That mantle did be picked up by other people over time, but he is by far the original Mr. NXT, if you think about it. Right? Moving on. Next on our list, Shayna Baszler. Now, people are trying to say, like, how can you put Shayna Baszler on here? Well, because her main roster stuff has been garbage. I mean, it started off really good. They got harpooned. But her NXT stuff, on the other hand, which people wish to bring back her glory days onto the main roster, which I think they should, right, has been her is longly forgot. She is the longest reigning champion, but with 2 reigns, right? Combined reigns, the longest reigning based on combined reigns. Okay, right? People forget how dominant she was there. She beat people like Ember Moon, right? Beat people like Bayley, right? Being pretty much every woman at the time on that roster, pretty decisively. Everybody seems to forget that her reign in her NXT, even though it was long and a lot of people don't like it, it was very dominant, right? Her main roster stuff, like I said, her first few months were great. And when she eliminated everybody in the Elimination Chamber, then got harpooned at WrestleMania and lost to Becky Lynch, which never should have happened. But hey, even Becky Lynch, she was going on record saying that they should have had Shayna Baszler win. Wasn't her choice though. That was the whack job in charge. But her NXT stuff, you can't touch. Because it's by far some of the best work she's ever done. Probably the best work she's ever done. Right? Next. Becky Lynch. Now, Becky Lynch, granted her time in NXT, wasn't the greatest her first run go. She was also part of the 4 horsewomen of the NXT. Right? The 4 that will take them to the next level. Right? The women's to the next level, right? The evolution, right? Now, her NXT run wasn't great. When you think you combine it with her main roster stuff. Her main roster stuff is by far better, right? She's a multi-time champion. Multi-time champion, tag team champion, women's tag team champion, current women's IC champion, several times over women's WWE champion. She ended up coming back to NXT, winning the NXT title, right? Then eventually losing it to Lyra Valkyria, right? But making her a Grand Slam champion. So really, you think about her, even though her time in NXT wasn't the greatest, when you compare it to her main roster time, Becky Lynch is by far still one of the best people to ever come out of NXT. Please comment down below if I'm wrong. Please, also, guys, make sure you're commenting on any of these people. If you think I'm wrong on any of these people, where I may have them on this list, which is right, or where they happen to be mentioned, hey, tell me. If you think they don't deserve to be on this list, then hey, let me know too. Totally fine with me. I am okay with that. Right? It's a matter of opinion. Right? Next one. Asuka. Now, I did mention Bayley's loss to Asuka. Because of that loss, Asuka ended up going on a tear in NXT. Right? Ended up leaving NXT, retiring the belt, kind of. She gave it up, actually, to be honest with you, right? Went undefeated in NXT, beat the likes of Bailey, Nia Jax, and others, right? Going on a 519-day reign. It's unheard of, right? Never been duplicated. Now, her main roster stuff, you can argue, hasn't been the greatest. It's been up and down. She is a multi-time champion, though, right? Do I think that her time at the top and the main roster has been great? Yes and no, right? She won Money in the Bank, ended up getting the women's title at the time too, right? Lost to Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, but won the Royal Rumble. You know, some of that stuff is controlled by a certain person who's no longer with the company. But her NXT stuff is unparalleled. Right? She came in NXT, right? When she made her name in Japan being Kana, right? And she just went through everybody in NXT. They pushed her to the moon. Literally. That's why I have to ask where she is. Right? Next one. Seth. Now, some people are going to sit there and say, you can't really put Seth. Yeah, I can. Seth Rollins is the inaugural, went from FCW, he ran into NXT, and became the inaugural NXT champion, right, by defeating Jinder Mahal in an NXT title tournament. Right? He later went on to form the Shield. Whether or not you think his time in NXT was short, not that great, people barely remember his Ring of Honor stuff, and he was Tyler Black. Right? But if you don't, his main roster stuff has definitely foreshadowed his NXT stuff. But you still cannot deny the fact that he is one of the best people to ever come out of NXT. Right? Because of that, he went on with the Shield, broke up the Shield, right? Became the tag team champion by screwing Roman Reigns over, right? Restarted the Shield again, with Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, right? Now he's the Visionary, right? He's a former WWE champion again, a tag team champion, IC champion. He's literally done everything there is. Okay? And he's eventually probably going to be the next WWE champion anyway. So, and whether people want to like it or not, Seth Rollins deserves to be on this list because, quite frankly, he is a pillar that helped build NXT to what it is today. Tell me if I'm lying. Right? Next one. Sasha Banks. Now, there's a name people are like, oh my God, you can't. Or Mercedes Verado, or whatever you want to call her. Right? Or Mercedes Moné. Right? Her stuff in NXT, being part of the four horsewomen of women's wrestling in NXT. Right? She won the NXT Women's Championship. Held it for a while. Developed the whole boss gimmick there, right? Had a classic match with Bayley at NXT Brooklyn. Is arguably the best match I've said before already on the show that has put the NXT on the map. You can even say because of that match at NXT Brooklyn that women's match there really elevated women's wrestling in the world, or at least in North America. All right. She's gone on since then to be a multi-time WWE champion, tag team champion. Right? She's left the company, and now she holds like 6 belts. Seriously. Right? She defeated, right? Now Stephanie Vakir, who used to be, right, in CMLL, right? Right? Who's now in NXT, right? Won the strong title from her. And she's like I said, she's won multiple belts all over the place. She's currently the TBS champion. The way they're going right now, she might end up winning the women's championship there too in AEW. We're not here talking about that though. But Sasha Banks' contributions to NXT, becoming one of the best people in NXT they ever have, is undeniable. Literally, Mercedes Moné is like a more amplified version of her boss character. And it deserves to be recognized for what it was in NXT. All right. Final 3. No particular order. Adam Cole. Now, people are sitting there saying, Adam Cole, well, that was a long time ago. Yeah. It was. But when you look at Adam Cole's track record in NXT, Adam Cole's been around a lot. He's been in what's it called? Ring of Honor, right? Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, right? NXT. He's currently with AEW. He's currently the TNT champion, right? Adam Cole's time in NXT, though, with the Undisputed Era, made them arguably the most popular faction at the time on the planet in wrestling, in the world of wrestling. Arguably, right? Right? He debuted against Drew McIntyre, kicking Drew McIntyre in the head, right? After he won the NXT Championship, right? Ended up winning the NXT Championship, holding it for the longest reign ever in the history of NXT, right? We all love Karrion Kross, but he ripped Karrion Kross a new one at one point just before he left NXT, right? And he's had a little bit of health problems ever since, but Adam Cole still is by far, his work in NXT deserves to be recognized as some of the best work you've ever seen. Kevin Owens. Now you're going to sit here and say, Kevin Owens, Andrew, you're a Kevin Owens nut. You love Kevin Owens. You're right. I do love Kevin Owens. 100%. But Kevin Owens' time in NXT, his debut alone, made a massive impact on NXT when he powerbombed Sami Zayn onto the ring mat, onto the ring apron, the edge of the apron. Okay? Winning the NXT Championship, holding for 149 days. Right? Came in with the whole NXT Championship, right? Did an open challenge against John Cena. Pop-up powerbomb on live TV. Right? Had a match against John Cena. I believe that Money in the Bank. Beat John Cena, pinned him. Right? Eventually losing the belt, moving up to the main roster, and having a very, very well-deserved time in the main roster. It was a little rocky at the beginning, right? He was a Universal Champion, right? Who got crapped out by Goldberg. Because somebody wanted Goldberg versus Brock. Hindsight, that was a good match, but still. At Mania, still. Right? But Kevin Owens' work is just really stuff. But his core stuff is Ring of Honor NXT based. He's been all over the place, a journeyman. Before he ever got to NXT, he was, like I said, he was a Ring of Honor Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, right? Known as Kevin Steen, right? Kevin Owens, by far, right, is one of the pillars that ever really helped build NXT to what it is today. Speaking of built NXT to what it is today, the final one on my list for this part one is Finn Balor. Finn Balor started Bray County, Wicklow, Ireland. Right? Started out, ended up going to Japan, right? Training more there, learning more there. Starting Bullet Club, which people seem to not always remember. Right? Started Bullet Club. Came to NXT, wearing the name Finn Balor instead of Prince Devitt or Fergal Devitt, which his real name is, right? Ended up going to Finn Balor. Debuted the Demon character, which he's done in Japan beforehand, right? In NXT. Held the title for, at the time, the longest reign until Adam Cole broke it, right? Held that title for a very long time, right? Had some of the best matches against Kevin Owens, right? Samoa Joe had the first steel cage match with Samoa Joe in NXT, right? Defeated the Who's Who in NXT at the time. Yes, his main roster debut has been up and down and shaky at times, you can argue. But you cannot deny the fact that Finn Balor is a reason why NXT has come to where it is today. If it wasn't for people like I've just mentioned, like the Finn Balors, the Kevin Owens, the Seth Rollins, the Sasha Banks, the Becky Lynches, the Baileys, the Asukas, Sami Zayns, Shayna Baszlers, you can argue that NXT wouldn't be where it was today. And that's why they're on this list of part one. Part two will be coming probably next little bit. Right? I'll let you know about more about that. But thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode here. This is Best People Come Out of NXT, Part 1. I'm Andrew. This is DA Wrestling. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe down below. Love you lots. Have a good one.